Hello, my name is Mark Kiefner, and I've lived at 507 Fox Lake Road property. And actually, prior to this, I lived at the end of Darling Street on Fox Lake Road since 1983, so I know a lot of the history of the property. And in the development of Fox Lake Farms, there's been some ongoing problems with water retention areas. So remember you talking about um, the water that runs off from Fox Lake Farms and how the retention ponds are becoming sealed over time, and there's not proper drainage that's creating problems for the roads and also on my property. And to help you understand, here's a visual of Fox Lake Farms. Here's the two water retention ponds. Here's my property. I used to own this property here too. JJ, he owns this property. We have Yoders across here, and other folks that do have concerns. And so standing at the top of Fox Lake Farms, looking down at one of the water retention ponds. Now this was taken before the grass really greened up, so I think it was into March, into March. And the snows had melted, and the ground was thawing, and we were starting already to get quite a bit of water retention. And but there is a drain that goes under this road here. This road was built by Randy Julian several years ago, and so water coming down from to the west here on this side of Fox Lake Road and coming off of these properties drains into here. The water does not come from across the railroad tracks. The farther west, the railroad tracks, that water drains south and eventually goes to it goes down to Pleasant Lake. So there's the water retention pond on the west side, and here's the one on the east side. And here's my property back in these trees here. And each year the water retention pond seems to grow a little bit more, because what's happened is the sediments is sealing the ground. And here's another aerial showing the water retention pond on the west side, on the east side. And you can see it's going over further onto my property. Originally, the water retention line was like right about in here, but now it's growing more, and it's creating problems of drainage in my property, and I'll show that to you here in a little while. And just another shot, the water on top of the hill drains also onto my property and goes through the ravines on RMC property and goes into the Timber Creek addition. This is all part of Jackson's Ditch, and I do pay taxes for this drainage, along with I think everybody else that lives in this area. They pay taxes on Jackson's Ditch, or they should. Here I'm standing on my property line. I'm looking south on my property line. Notice retention pond on my property. It keeps going over further and further. Of course, there's a kind of a little hill here built up. And but it keeps going further into John Stowe's property. Right now the grass is greened up. We just got a little bit more, but I've seen it as high like up into this area here. And so this water comes from, this is looking up to Fox Lake Farms. The water comes down, and then it comes through eventually all of this place here. Now some of it will seep deep into the ground and then onto the water tables, but most all of it eventually drains through right here in front of my house on 507 Fox Lake Road. And so this is standing back by my pole barn. The water is going under the ground. There were old corrugated pipes that were put in by Leroy Rao years ago when he farmed. He actually, Fox Lake Farms was a cornfield, and he put corrugated piping in. This will go back in the 80s, and it was just 6-inch stuff, and he ran quite a few lines across my property because I did own this property even then, and I didn't stop him. I was okay, you know. And so some of these old corrugated pipings that are down here are back from the 80s. That allowed some drainage for him to farm that property with corn. But those corrugated, I think, have collapsed. When I built my home, I put a dish corrugated piping in to help with drainage. I do not have a sump pump in my basement. It was not necessary. And so moving on down, some of the problems that I'm running into is, now this was in the beginning of March and we're just getting a little bit of water. But since then, there's a lot of water in this area here. And I put this marble rock in last year trying to reclaim my fire pit area, my gazebo. This goes into my basement walkout. And this is all discolored now with this orange rust from this water that comes through. So I'm securing losses right now. And then I also have concerns about if this continues, this water may start setting in here and going into my basement. And I have not talked to my insurance carrier about that, but I am concerned. And this was also in March, and this water just starts setting in this little gully here. I cannot mow in this area properly. And there you see the water there, and the water kind of goes, it's under the ground, most of it, but it's starting to come on top of the ground. And also there's been times when we've had really strong rains that this area, all of this area is filled up with water. Because there's just one, it's about a 9-inch or 12-inch drain that goes under Fox Lake Road here, which goes over to Stan Yoder's property. Now this is another problem here. Here's 507 Fox Lake Road. You can see this sediment that's building up here. This washes down from the street from both ways and builds up, and so eventually my yard is like 8 inches taller than the edge of the road. About 3 years ago, the city came down and scraped it all off and got it back open again and just carried some of that dirt back on my property, and I used it. But this is happening again, and probably curbs do need to be set in here to properly do the drainage here and to prevent this buildup on my property. And it becomes a nuisance for the street cleaning and becomes a nuisance for cars going by, because the water sometimes will run over as far as over this area because the water comes down the hill from Fox Lake on Fox Lake Road. And then a little bit more about the drainage here. There you can see the tile or this is under 507. This is my corrugated piping coming out, one that I installed when I built my home. There is a cable line that goes through here, which I think is active. You can see it right there. And then looking back up from there, what I'm proposing is that a drain system would be put in these retention ponds, at least to the one to maybe the east, and then tiling over down through my property, and then coming over to Fox Lake Road, maybe installing a larger drain here and putting curbing on Fox Lake Road. Now this goes over to Stan Yoder's property, and he's designed his house very well to withstand the water because this property was always underwater in the spring and in the wintertime. But Stan is an engineer, and he knew how to design his home to take care of it. But I know he has concerns about the water coming through the property, and it goes into a drain. There is a drain here that goes then deep under the ground through the intersection of Darling Street and Fox Lake Road and down to the retention pond, which is located just on the west side of State Road 27 South Wayne Street, and then goes over into Timber Creek. So it's the beginning of Timber Creek. And so that's basically what I wanted to talk to you about and share this with you. I am concerned that the water retention ponds will continue to hold more and more water, and it'll create a problem on my property. And I think there are concerns of other property owners in the area. We hope that something can be proposed and done about this situation. Thank you very much.